I'm thankful to call him a friend and a fellow announcer. And this guy's done everything basically in golf, Gary Christian. You've been a star in college at Auburn. You've played on the PGA Tour. You battled Tiger Woods. And now you're one of the great voices in the game. It's so good to have you, man. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, thank you, and great to connect with you again, Mark. It's been a few months, and looking forward to the start of next year's or next season's PGA Tour. So we'll get to do some more work together, I hope.
Comes quickly, doesn't it?
It
Hey,
does.
you now are an author. You can add that to the resume. Um, Beat the Course, Not Yourself is the name of the yarn. I've been hooked since I started reading it. And there was a chapter, in fact, I think it might be the second to last chapter. It slips my mind, but the title caught my attention, and I would be lying if I told you I didn't start there. And the title was Showtime: Perform When It Matters.
Mm, mm.
I
Well,
know
isn't
it's
that?
not only me; it's everyone who's watching to or listening to this going, "Yeah, I mean, I practice and I get the first 10, it goes to heck."
Yeah.
Please share some of the nuggets there.
Well, isn't that what we're all looking for? I mean, that is the secret to playing when it counts. We want to give ourselves the best opportunity to play well when it counts, whether that's in a club championship, a PGA Tour event, a junior event, a dogfight, whatever it is. And yeah, most people, it's kind of hit and miss, isn't it? You turn up, you wake up, and sometimes you feel really good, sometimes you feel really bad, sometimes you feel really good on the front nine, sometimes really bad on the back nine. You just don't know when it's coming.
Mhm.
And so you kind of put all this energy into playing a competitive round, and you really have no control if it's going to be good or bad. And so the purpose of this book was to kind of help the player get a little bit more in control of what they do. In effect, give yourself a business plan. I coach, a number of players, and I say to them, if these are successful business people, I say if you ran your business like you ran your golf game, you'll be bankrupt because there's no plan, there's no business plan. So what this book does in a simpler form and as clear a form and as an entertaining form as possible is to give you a little bit more of a plan to help get the most out of what game you have and get the most out of how much effort and time you're willing to put into it. So when you have an opportunity to make a score count, it's not guaranteed, but it's certainly going to give you a far better chance of success.
Yeah, stacking the odds in your favor, I guess. Along those lines, a little bit. The book, from what I've read of it, sort of smacks a little bit of that book, 7 Days in Utopia, which
Mm.
everyone knows. I read this and I couldn't help but think, is Gary Christian sort of writing this about himself a little bit and his journey through golf to where he is right now? Because you have come from the UK, good player, as I say, all America, all SEC, whatever you were in college, and then you make it to the pros, and now you're on the other side of things, inside the ropes, calling the best at their best. So now you've done it. Now you get to see it, and you've got all this plethora of information, all this experience. And like I said, it made me wonder: is this about himself a little bit in the journey?
It's a potentially a microcosm of my life. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're very perceptive, Mark. That's one of your the spidey
I'm lucky to
senses.
know you.
Yeah, so it is the reason we wrote it in a narrative, in a book form, in a story form, was to make it easier for a conversational way of giving the reader advice and giving the reader the ways to improve their game. I find that golf psychology is kind of that last piece that people are a little bit wary of, and I don't know if it's because it shows weakness on their part or whatever it is, but it seems like they'll try everything else before they try psychology and golf psychology, and so if someone's a little bit reluctant anyway, the last thing you want to do is to give them a sort of an academic book where you get two paragraphs in and you think, nah, this isn't for me. This is boring, or I don't understand some of the terminology, or it doesn't speak to me. So that's why we wrote it in this form. So it was originally, just designed for teenage competitive golfers because really nothing's been directed towards them, and it's so important now. We see the great young players. The reason they're so great is because the best players have a PGA Tour quality team around them from their mid-teens onwards, maybe even earlier. And so this is sort of that introduction, but it's so relevant to regular players, to older players, to pros, whatever it is. But as you say, I could channel Jack, the main character, who's a 15-year-old, because I was a junior golfer and I went through and remember what he went through in this book.
Yeah.
And then I can also channel his dad, because as a parent of kids, I've had to deal with soccer disappointments and basketball disappointments and some golf disappointments. And then I can channel this wizened old wise pro that's been around the game for a long time, that helps Jack, the teenager, to try and improve and try and change the way he thinks. So it was a great way of me kind of playing lots of different characters, in effect, with all the different forms of experience I've had.
Yeah, you know what? I just did something. I love Carl Morris. I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He's from the United Kingdom and just a super mind. And he's been on my show a few times, and he earned a spot in my book because I thought he was just so insightful. And there were various quotes I used, and the first one was, often the real truth is surprisingly simple. But here was this too. He goes, it's stripping away some of the complexity of the game. We're drowning in information, but searching for wisdom.
Mm. Mm.
Now you wrote this book sort of to youngsters, but it's to me applicable to or everyone at whatever station you are in the game, because the mechanics of golf doesn't really change. But here's what's happening, and I want your take on this, where we have so much technology at our disposal. It's information overload, and the real doyens, maybe, are the folks that can sort of take the data and make it that lesson from the wise old pro that's like, two deep breaths, smooth takeaway, and balance your finish kind of thing. Are you with me on this observation?
Oh, 100%. I think wisdom is so underrated, and it's just not appreciated like it should be. When you think of wisdom, I think of when I was starting as a pro, I was really fortunate to spend a lot of time with Dave Reagan. He played on the tour in the 60s, was a Ryder Cupper, finished run up to Jack Nicklaus in the PGA Championship. We just sat and talked. I just wanted to listen. I just wanted to take as much information in as possible. When I first started playing, my dad, he wasn't a pro by any stretch of the imagination, but he got a few little tips from this old Scottish fella who had probably learned it from another old Scottish fella. And that wisdom helped me form the DNA of my game without ever having a lesson until I was 26. And all he said was, make the divot after the stick. And so I made the divot, passed the ball, and that gave me, a steady head, a good pivot, weight transference, descending blow, flat left wrist at impact. I had 100 lessons just purely trying to make the divot after the stick. So what I found is, over the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years, it just seems like the wisdom part of golf has been sort of removed, because we have so much so-called answers. We have so much technology and research that proves this and equals that, and you don't go away from that because that's the answer. 1 + 1 = 2. And I get a sense that there may be that little move back, where I know the PGA of America is trying to do more on-course teaching, on-course coaching, getting a little bit away from the swing mechanics. Obviously that's incredibly important, but it's not, you can do all the swing mechanics you can, but if you don't know how to take it to the course, you spend a lot of time and money for something that isn't going to translate to the golf course. So that's where on-course coaching, working on simple golf psychology, that is golf psychology, but it's also common sense as well. I think it's going to make you a better player, and I think it's easier to do and quicker to do, to be able to change some habits.
You're so right, Gary, and forgive me that I have not introduced you properly to our audience. I'm going to get there, but you got me down a rabbit hole here.
Good.
Everything in golf is so measurable right now, but to me, golf is like the ultimate of immeasurable games. People trying to make Moneyball out of it, like they did with baseball and that sort of thing. But you said so with Showtime, perform when it matters. You basically stacking the odds in your favor, but there's no guarantee. And so all the data, flat left wrist, that sort of stuff, that might amount to a hill of beans if you're not right mentally. And so you're finding the proliferation of hypnotherapy, all these other sort of cottage industries alongside golf that are coming out, because people are realizing that, look, in the end, it all comes from the mind, the will, the emotions, all that sort of stuff. I don't care how many shots you've hit on the practice tee.
Well, my career was the perfect example of that.
Okay.
I physically had no business winning a couple of times on the Korn Ferry Tour and playing on the PGA Tour and making the FedEx Cup playoffs as a rookie, as a 40-year-old rookie, I might add. The only reason I had any chance was because I understood early on that my physical limitations could only take me so far.
Wait,
And
wait,
that
wait,
made
wait,
me
wait. For the folks who aren't watching this on YouTube, I'm not the tallest dude in the world. I'm about 5'9". I think I've got Gary by like a half an inch. If you're wondering how big he is and you don't know who Gary Christian is.
exactly. Yeah, you tower over me at 5'9". And so I made a decision, maybe a little bit too late. That's the reason I was a 40-year-old rookie and not a 30-year-old rookie, to throw myself 100% into the golf psychology and relaxation and controlling my heart rate, and doing subliminal tapes to boost my confidence and positive thinking and enthusiasm, autogenics, deep muscle relaxation, visualization, all of these things. I took time away from the range and said, I'm going to take that 2 hours I'm not doing on the range, and I'm going to throw myself into this. And that first year I did that, I played, I don't know, 25 events on the mini tours and qualifying school, and I never finished outside the top six. I was the same player physically, but I was so mentally tough and I was so emotionally resilient that I was able to turn 74s into 71s, 71s into 68s, and 68s into 65s and below. And there were days when I was playing awful and weeks when I was playing awful, but would find a way to rescue a round and then come back the next day and play decently and have a chance to win still. And so in the book, actually, I talk about, or Charlie, the wizened old pro, talks about, you've got to trust there's a 45-minute stretch in your round somewhere where you're going to transform your round. And if you have let the round go before then, it doesn't matter what that 45, how good that 45 minutes is. It's not going to make a big difference. But if you're let's say you're a pro and you get sloppy and you make bad decisions and you get frustrated and you're 6 over par after 7 holes, and you have that 45-minute stretch where you shoot a couple under, well, you're still 4 or 5 over par, and you're not going to make a check again that week. But if you have hung in with the round by being mentally strong, being emotionally resilient, making smart decisions, understanding where your game is and understanding what a good result would be, and you can kind of get it around in a couple over par, and you've really not played well, but you've saved a few shots, and you've got some up and down, you made a few putts, you've made some wise decisions, and then all of a sudden make a couple of birdies in a 45-minute stretch. Now all of a sudden you're back to even. Now all of a sudden with a good finish, you shoot under par, and you still have a chance the next day. And that's the story form of this book, of just seeing kind of where Jack, the main character, started in his first tournament and where he finished in his last tournament as a result of the work he had done to become a mentally stronger player.
Okay. I so want to stay there, but I do want to tie the bow with Gary Christian. Young Englishman, how on earth did you end up in college in Auburn, Alabama?
Well, I'm one of the anomalies once again, not only being a 40-year-old rookie, I'm one of the anomalies of I had a full-time job when I left school. So I was playing twice a week. Everyone else was playing 7 days a week. And I just had this feeling, I know I'm as good as those guys. I know I'm maybe better than those guys, but I only play twice a week and they all play 7 days a week. And so the best opportunity I had was to try and get a college scholarship over here so I could play 7 days a week and take that excuse out of it. So I went on a golf tryout, in effect, to Orlando. There was not exactly Auburn and Oklahoma State and the big colleges there. There was a bunch of junior colleges, Division III, the odd Division I, and I was given a spot on a junior college team, not a scholarship, a spot. And I parlayed that into showing what I could do for 7 days a week, and was an All-American there, and then earned a scholarship to Auburn.
And you were all SEC there? You were all America, right?
All SEC my junior year, my first year at Auburn.
Tremendous. What a cool story.
Mm.
Okay, let's get back to it, the mental game. You said it, and I just want to kind of ask the question and just sort of mine here a little bit more. people are a bit apprehensive because it sort of seems like hocus pocus and higgledy-piggledy. And like I remember as a kid, I read Jack Nicklaus saying, well, I'd see the shot and I'd see it in my mind like a movie, and then I'd step up and I'd make like the movie. And then later in life, I've heard Tiger Woods saying, my dad used to tell me to putt to the picture, the picture, putt to the picture. And man, I remember as a kid, I'd try and see this movie and it was like broken and just not good. And then I'd do it once or twice and I'd still hit a crappy shot. So, so I was like, whatever, man. I'm just going to hit more balls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not the only guy who's gone through this. You're the expert. You like you like the black belt Dan here. Help us out for people that are just getting into working on improving their mental skills on and off the golf course.
Well, you and me were exactly the same in that the conventional wisdom is if you want to get better, you just practice harder. You just hit more balls. Most of the time you're hitting more balls and making more bad habits. And so, that's why the switch to just trying something different, as I said, it's in effect pivoting in a career, pivoting in a business plan. So hit as many balls as you can is one business plan, and it doesn't always work. Most of the time, in fact, it doesn't work. And so to pivot to say, okay, I put in the hard work to kind of learn my craft of how to move the body, how to move the club head, how to control the club face. Okay, that's pretty good. I hit a lot of really good shots. In the book, Charlie says, have you ever hit a 300-yard drive dead straight? Yeah, I have. Have you ever hit a 5-iron inside 10 foot? Yeah, I have. Have you ever got one up and down from a tough spot? Yeah. So you're physically capable of doing it. Well, why don't we do it all the time? It's because we have so much interference to not allow that incredible ability that we've harnessed, that we've worked on, to happen more consistently and more often. And so you kind of talked about Jack Nicklaus painting that vivid picture. We can all do things at different levels. He is, and Tiger, one of the great things that they have was this incredible imagination. Lee Trevino was the same. And some people just don't visualize pictures as clearly as someone like Jack or Tiger, but you don't give up because you can't visualize like them. You've got to find your own way of making, this fuzzy, muddy picture just a little bit clearer. Wash a little of the mud off with a hose. And so we think in pictures. If you ask me to think of the greatest player who's ever lived, straight away I see a picture of Tiger or I see a picture of Jack Nicklaus in my mind. And so because we think in pictures, we've got to try and use that and harness that in our golf games. Yeah. So the clearer the picture or the clearer the information, understanding what we can and can't do is going to give us the best chance to make the best decisions, make the best club selections, and then be able to live with our choices. In the book, I talk about, we want to hit a shot and have no regrets. At the end of it, hey, we did everything we could do. Golf's a bloody hard game, and sometimes you don't get the results you want. But if you can say, I painted a really clear picture, I had a really good plan, I had the right club, I had the right shot selection, and I just hit a bad shot. Well, you just hit a bad shot, but you can sit back at the end of that shot and say, there's nothing much else I could have done.
Help us quick too, because before I get to routines, and you talk about routines, a secret weapon, and then also what you do between shots matters. Before I go there, I don't think the average golfer watching or listening to this realizes that developing the mental skill is like developing your golf swing. It doesn't happen overnight and I've had, neurosurgeons and stuff on the show. They talk about sort of rebuilding neural pathways. It's possible, but it takes, continual shifting of the mind.
Exactly. Well, let's think of a PGA Tour team. So we've got a swing coach, a guy who helps with the physical side, with working out. We have a nutritionalist. We'll have a psychologist. We'll have somebody who plans travel. So let's just say, obviously the swing coach, we've got to work hour after hour after hour to improve our technique. When we go in the gym, we start a certain program and we lift a certain number of weights or a certain poundage of weights, and then little by little we increase that to get more efficient and get better. We change our nutritional habits, and it's hard to change. We've been doing the same thing for however many years, so it takes time. And the mental side and the mental training is exactly the same. but it's just as important, if not more important, because the body's going to react to what the mind's thinking and how it reacts and how it processes information. So if you figure that is the most powerful muscle or part of your body, and you're not spending the time on that to make it work as efficiently as possible, that's then going to work all the way down the line with performance that is not going to be as good as it possibly can be.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, let's get to it. It's a story that's this yarn about Jack, and you talk about and how he moves his way through the game. And each chapter, this sort of story built, but it's got titles that kind of lead you to where the lesson is. And I've picked out a few of the 14. And like I mentioned, it's the routine, a golfer's secret weapon. And then the chapter shortly thereafter is what you do between shots really matters. So talk about routine. I think it's kind of, a lot of people think it's trite. And then a lot of people between shots, I don't think that they're awfully appropriate either.
Exactly. Well, I look at a pre-shot routine, but I look at a bigger circle of a routine for the whole round, as it were. So let's just say, we're doing our pre-shot routine and we do it really well and we hit a good shot. And then, man, we're quite happy, aren't we? We walk to the next shot and we're in a good frame of mind. And then the process starts again. And we've given ourselves a pretty good chance to hit another good shot. And so we get a good cycle, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, let's flip that around. We do a not a very good routine or don't do a routine at all. We hit a bad shot. We have a bad reaction. We spend the next 5 minutes walking to the next shot, upset, mad, still thinking about that previous shot, still thinking about our score, still thinking about what my parents are thinking when they watch me make another double bogey. And then we're not in a very good frame of mind to start the next pre-shot routine, to start the next shot. And so the cycle continues there as well. So everything is kind of interlinked, but it all starts with the basis of a good, sound, positive, useful pre-shot routine, physical and mental. And so, we see, most people, when they think of a pre-shot routine, okay, we'll do a couple of waggles, same number of waggles every time, and then hit the ball. And, that's a physical routine, but at least it's a start. You've got some sort of consistency. What we're trying to do in this book, Beat the Course, not yourself, is to try and get the mental routine just as sharp as we possibly can to give ourselves the best chance for the physical stuff to happen afterwards. And so, most golf psychology books will talk about, you want to commit to the shot, you want to visualize and feel the shot, and then you want to react to the target as well as you can. And the way we describe it is, we just try and make it as clear to understand and as simple as we possibly can. We don't want to overcomplicate things. And so the last thing we want to do is try and overthink the steps, which when you first do it, obviously there's an element of conscious thought. But the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit, just like when we learn how to drive. We're thinking of where our hands are sitting. We're thinking of looking in the mirrors obsessively. We're doing this and that. And then, 6 months later, we're drinking a Coke with one hand. We're on the phone with the other hand. We're steering with our knees. And we're strumming along to a song we're hearing on the radio. So that's when it becomes automatic. So you have to do a little bit of work up front to make it more unconscious. But then when you've done that, that's when you're going to really see the benefits of it.
Cool. So help us between shots, because look, we all go through those moments. Look, golf's inevitable. You talked about it earlier. I oftentimes say to people, I'm like, there's a cycle in golf. Good shot, indifferent shot, bad shot, indifferent shot, good shot. And it's happening all the time. And that's not, it's not binary like that, but you're going to hit bad shots and indifferent stuff, but that's not going to define you. So help put us in that place then, without giving away too much from the book, to say, okay, between shots, and you've just hit the bad one, what do you do? How do you go and view the next one? You know the drill.
If we've committed to ourselves to say, okay, the best chance we've got of success is to commit to this pre-shot routine. It's to commit to what we're talking about in this book. And we've committed to that process and we hit a bad shot. We give ourselves a couple of seconds to react. Oh man, that sucked. Or, oh dear, I can't believe I did that. And then we take a breath and then we look at it a little bit more objectively of, okay, let's just go through a few things. How well did I commit to that? Most of the time, we're going to find an answer in one of these questions. How well did I commit to it? Well, if I'm being honest, I knew I had the wrong club in my hands, or I knew that tree was in my eye line down the left side of the tee box and I steered away from it.
Mhm.
Or, I forgot to take a practice swing, or, I really didn't know what I was doing. I just stood up and hit it. And then we can say to ourselves, okay, based on that objective question, those objective questions that we just given ourselves, let's use that as a reminder on the next shot. Okay, we're going to commit a little bit more to picking the correct shot, or making a more productive practice swing, where we're actually trying to focus and be intuitive on what is that we're trying to actually achieve. And then we can walk to the next shot and say, okay, I've kind of gone through what I need to go through. Now let's try and get my mind off where we are, kind of clear, kind of reset, kind of the way that tennis players at the end of a point go to the back of the court, wipe their tennis rackets down with a towel and reset. It's a new point, it's a new game, it's a new whatever. That's what we've got to do with golf. We've got to take that same mindset of just, okay, last shot's done. Did we do everything we could do? In honesty, probably not. Okay, so we've identified what we didn't do very well. Now I'm going to use that as just a key, a little reminder on the next shot to do that just a little bit better. And now we want to just sort of take our mind off of golf for a little bit. It's hard to do, obviously, when we've just hit a shot in the trees, but it's not going to make it any easier if we then spend the next 5 minutes walking to the next shot, thinking how bad we are, or telling ourselves how bad we are, telling ourselves how many over par we are, telling ourselves, this is embarrassing, what badly I'm playing, because it's not going to allow you to have a very clear mind on the next shot, which is going to lead to a bad decision perhaps, and compound a bad shot with bad thinking and maybe a dumb shot.
Mm-hmm. You battled against Tiger Woods one time, and he was the master of that. In fact, if you watch a Tiger Woods highlight reel, a lot of the shots that are highlights are coming out of bad spots. Good friend of mine, Brady Riggs, calls them OTEs, opportunities to excel, on the next one.
Exactly.
Let's move along. You used it earlier. We teed you off with showtime, perform when it matters. And you talked about the business plan to allow yourself to perform when it matters. Because the reality is you don't walk through some cool time warp that clicks you into like God mode, and then you suddenly arrive with the first tee. But you've got various chapters. Yeah, relax your body, free your mind, power of positive talk. But I wanted to talk about this one, the taking it to the course thing. Because man, I've taught golf since 1996, and I've heard it countless times. Great in practice, but then when I get to the golf course, the whole thing just falls in on itself. Give us the mental insights just to not necessarily avoid the bad play, because that's difficult, but just to deal with stuff on the course a bit better.
Yeah, and I think it all comes from practice as well. You think about how sanitized practice is. We get a perfect lie. We have a nice big pile of balls. We have a nice flat lie. We have an alignment rod. And we have no consequences if we hit a bad shot. So, I mean, it really doesn't, it doesn't mirror being on the golf course at all. And so, we can do block practice and learn how to hit certain shots. But then you've got to, I think in order to take it from the practice range to the golf course, you've got to practice on the range like you would on the golf course. And so I think you take away all the alignment rods, you start going through your routine, and you have one ball and you go to a target, and then you take another club and you go to a different target, and you try and replicate golf. I was, when I was on the covering the Korn Ferry tour, I covered Kevin Doherty, really good player. I used to love watching him in his warm up before his round. So he would go through the clubs and get warmed up and go through the bag, and then he would play the first 9 holes, and his caddy would tell him where the flag is, and he would, he'd hit driver and guess he's got 130 yards left to a back left flag. So he would then hit a gap wedge to a back left flag, and he would he'd tell the caddy, oh, that's 15 feet right. Okay, great, let's go to the next hole. What is it? Par 5. Okay, here we go. It's bunker down the left. There's, so we're going to fit it between these 2 flags. That's the fairway. And so all of a sudden, you have brought a playing mindset onto the practice range right before you're about to go to the golf course. And to me, that's where most people have those big errors where that to me is such a common phrase. I'm sure it's like you've just said, oh man, I play so well on the range, I just can't get it to the golf course. Well, I think there's that sort of that middle step between range play or practice and being on the course, and that is to practice on the range like you are playing on the golf course.
That's
And get yourself prepared to know what it is you can do on the golf course. That's the thing. I mean, one of the chapters we talk about, if all you do is hit a full 7-iron every shot on the range, well, you've really got no business trying to hit a 3/4 cut 7-iron to a back right pin with water down the right side, because you've never practiced it before. But I did actually a little bit of coaching, volunteer coaching for a college team, and I was shocked. These were the kind of decisions that the players would make because it was the so-called right shot.
Yeah.
Well, it was the only way I was going to get it close, but you've never practiced that shot before. Why would you bring that into a tournament and then be surprised when you make a double bogey? Well, it was it was what the shot called for. And like they couldn't get through that mindset of, okay, if you never practiced that shot, why would you bring it out on a golf course?
Brilliant. Truth. I've got to ask this question. It's the shadow side of it, because yeah, folks could certainly gain by warming up the way they would play at least the first few holes.
Mm.
So what happens then, Gary, if you're out there and you're trying to warm up and you hit the driver this way and that way and all the rest of it? So help us with that, because we've got to go and play. Direct to the first.
I mean, that's the thing. For a pro, we would find, before we went on to the course, we would find a shot we could somehow control, and obviously set our expectations lower. In that, okay, today's one of those days, man, I don't have my A game or my B game. I've got to find a way to get it around with my C game. And we saw Tiger Woods kind of do that and still win tournaments with his C game.
Yeah.
But let's just say you're a 15, 20 handicapper and you're hitting it all over the place. Well, that's the one where, I mean, you could literally not make anywhere close to a par for 18 holes. So now you've got to, again, adjust your expectations. And if you would normally hit driver on that first hole, but you've just hit driver all over the place, left and right, well, you don't have any kind of idea where the ball's going. So we got to find a club. I don't care if it's a 5-iron, but find a club that you can get between the trees, and then find another club that you can hit solid to get somewhere up there, and then find a way to get it on the green and make a bogey, and maybe find a little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
But again, that's what we're trying to. I'm trying to get through in certainly in one of the chapters, really talking about committing to a shot that you can hit.
Yeah.
And so if you have no clue where a ball's going, that club doesn't really need to be bought out of the bag. And you go down until you find a club that can work, until you find the club face on a consistent basis. And then we can maybe, we see a little bit more of an open hole, and we can maybe play a little bit more club and see if we can get a little bit further down there. But it's a hard game, especially when you've got a job and commitments and kids and don't have time to hit balls and improve technique. You want to give yourself the best chance. And I think this side of the game, even when things aren't going well physically, will get the best out of whatever it is you have on any given day.
It's amazing. That is so true. And it's amazing to me how adopting sometimes the defensive approach, and then you make that good save, that sometimes it just turns the momentum of the round. How many times have you seen that as an on-course guy, where some person's kind of ragged, it's final round pressure, they don't have the best stuff, and they're chopping it around the place, make a few pars, all of a sudden you drain like a 40-foot bomb and someone turns the switch.
Yeah.
And it happens at every level of the game, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Goes back to what I was saying earlier on. You're 45 minutes away from transforming around. It could just be one shot that does it. But if you have not done what you can control up until that point, it could be all for now. So that's why we're training. I think the mental side of the game is more important when you're playing poorly, because it keeps you in a round. It's, when we're playing well, we can stand on our head and play well, whether you're a pro or a 15 handicapper. Just some days you've got it.
Yeah.
But it's when you're playing badly, how can you manage your game around as best you can? And that's where having that business plan on every single shot is going to give you that best chance.
You remind me of a guy called John Sherman who came on this podcast like way, way back. It's before he was a star, because he's a star now.
Uh-huh.
Various books. And he sent me a t-shirt that he had made with a logo on the front that said, "Waging a war on double bogeys."
Exactly. Exactly.
And he
I,
took
I
himself to a plus handicap by just big number avoidance.
exactly. I actually just did a podcast with him, and the first things we talked about, I said, I think we're kindred spirits because I listened to what he's talked about, and it's exactly the same kind of stuff as I'm talking about. So, yeah, and that's why I think there's potentially that little move back towards wisdom, like we kind of pull it back to the start of our conversation, because what he's saying and what I'm saying is wisdom, it's common sense, but it's something that you can have an actionable series of thoughts and actions and practice them so it becomes more of a habit. And so, in the book, in the first tournament, Jack plays 9 great holes,
Yeah.
but it's all because he's swinging it well. And then as soon as he hits one bad shot, he loses all confidence. So his confidence was built basically on sand as foundations because I'm swinging it well. So, okay, I'm confident. And then when I'm not swinging it well, I'm not confident. And so that's how we see most golfers, whether, especially in the amateur game, that it can go so quickly. And we see so many, 46, 38s on 9 holes of golf where it just all of a
The
sudden,
collegians, it's the same
yeah,
thing.
exactly, yeah. And so one thing I want to say about this book, I think this book is a great read for parents of teenagers
Yeah.
who play golf competitively, because you know what they're like. They drive around the country, they spend all this money, on lessons, and they get so frustrated. I've talked to a lot of them. Man, I keep seeing my kid just hit it down the middle and miss a green with a wedge and make a double bogey. I see it every tournament. I see him 3-putt from 20 feet every tournament, and he's so much better than that. And like, why am I spending all this money? And he just keeps making the same dumb mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because he doesn't have a consistent pattern of thoughts to enable him to not make those mistakes. And most of the times, those mistakes are being in between clubs and not being committed to the shot, or trying to be too aggressive, or trying to make up for the bogey you just made on the previous hole. All of these things, that's usually the reason. We want to get to the actual diagnosis, not the symptoms. The symptoms is a pulled wedge into the bunker, short-sided, plugged. The symptom is just the little part of it. The diagnosis is why did that situation happen? And most of the time we'll find, if we really dig deeply, it was because there was something lacking in the process before the club ever moved.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant stuff. It's a brilliant read. I'm not finished with it yet, but is on my list of things to complete over the holiday period. Gary, tell people where they can find the book and where they can find you.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. We self-published, and it is Beat the Course, Not Yourself. It's actually the #1 new release bestseller in golf instructions or golf coaches. So that's kind of cool. I was really proud, actually. We had Nick Kleiner, the head coach of the Auburn men's golf team, National Coach of the Year, write a foreword and tied it into how he looks when he's recruiting. He's looking not just at the physical skills, but how potential recruits conduct themselves on the golf course, how they deal with bad situations, how they deal with adversity. And also Susie Whaley from the past president of the PGA of America wrote the other foreword, and she tied it into the ADM, the American Development Model, where at the sort of the 15, 16-year-old age range is the time that you really want to start, looking into some psychology. And this is that simple pathway that's easy to read and easy to understand. So yeah, get the book on Amazon. I also got my website, GaryChristianGolf.com, and that will tell you a little bit about me and what I do, and hopefully we can make some contact with some nice people who might want to learn a little bit more about golf. But my story, I do some motivational speaking and travel hosting and broadcasting. I don't know if I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, or if I just am just trying to do too much. But being an author now is very fun to have on the resume.
Well deserved. I know you're in social. Please share the handles for the folks. We got a lot of social media users on this show.
Yeah, so on X, it's gazzagolf.com, Gazza. Sorry, it's Gazza Golf 1966. So not the year of my birth, but the year that England last won the World Cup. So soccer's quite important to me. I'm on TikTok and Instagram, I don't even know what my handle is, but I don't have enough followers to to really worry about that.
All right, on the mark, people, go and let's load him up. Let's go and get
Yeah,
some
exactly.
followers for Gary. Gary, great stuff, man. It's good to see you. I look forward to seeing you on the fairways, yeah, very soon.
No, it'd be a lot of fun. I really enjoy working with, as always, and it's nice to work with someone kind of like me who's kind of seen golf from so many angles. I think it helps us to convey the knowledge that we have without the burdens of being superstars on the PGA Tour. I think that helps us a lot, doesn't it? Me as a complete journeyman, to be able to maybe explain a little bit more of how difficult this game it actually is.
Truly is. Thanks for joining us, Gary. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, mate.